God of War Ragnarok. Will it play on your favorite handheld devices? That's the question that we're trying to answer today here on Will It Play, the series where I try to inform you if and how well games will play on your favorite handheld devices at default settings. This is geared more towards the gamer that just wants to be able to download a game and jump straight in. They don't really want to waste time having to tinker with system or game settings to make a game run optimally. Now, it's been a big week for PC gamers in terms of PlayStation exclusives coming to PC. We got Final Fantasy 16 out on the PC a couple of days ago earlier this week, and then we got God of War Ragnarok, which just dropped yesterday. So really exciting time. God of War Ragnarok, I've been really looking forward to this one. A little cautious on how it might run, but nonetheless, I've been excited. Before we jump into it though, obvious spoiler alerts, not only on God of War Ragnarok, because we'll be seeing gameplay from the early parts of the game, but also from the prequel, the original God of War 2018. So if you haven't played that yet, I do recommend you checking it out before jumping into God of War Ragnarok. Although I do think there is a story recap that you can access via the Ragnarok main menu. If you're interested in checking out the God of War prequel game though, and you're wondering how that runs on the handheld devices, I did a video about that a couple weeks ago. I'll drop the link in the description below if you want to check that out. But without further ado, I'm Jared, and this is God of War Ragnarok, Will It Play? So this is the first time that I booted up the game, and honestly I was a little hesitant because I kept hearing things about needing a PlayStation Network account, and I wasn't sure if that was going to impact users from being able to play. But as you can see here, I was able to boot this up, and once initial shaders were downloaded, I was able to play immediately with no issues. Didn't ask anything about needing to sign into my PlayStation Network, so that's good. And then while the shaders were downloading, I did check out the default settings, and you can see that everything here was defaulted to low, just a point of reference. So starting out with the Steam Deck LCD, and I was pleasantly surprised that even from the opening scene, we're seeing a steady 30 FPS, barely saw drops below this. Now this is still an intensive game, which is to be expected, with CPU usage sitting around 60%, and the GPU usage is in the high 90s, but it doesn't actually sit at that maxed out 99%, which is nice. FPS and combat gave us numbers in the mid to high 30s, and as far as battery life, I lost 66% in 1 hour, so users can estimate close to an hour and a half on a full charge.
Leader on the left! Blasted raiders!
They should not be this close.
Next up is the Steam Deck OLED, and numbers aren't too far off. CPU usage still averages around 60%, and the GPU usage is still varying in the mid to high 90 percentile range. We do see a slight increase in FPS here, sitting in the low to mid 40s, and good battery life as always, losing only 44% in an hour, so we can estimate over 2 hours on a full charge.
The trail goes through here. Leads deeper in.
There will be more.
Well, someone got in the bear's way. Fire from above! That one's got a sling. Look out, brother! Behind you! Look out!
Before jumping into the Ally gameplay, I do want to segue and look at the default settings for this device, because when I initially started playing on my Ally, I was surprised how bad the performance was, with numbers consistently worse than what I saw on the Steam Deck. Now, I usually check this before I start playing, but I slipped this time. But upon further review, I noticed that the Ally had default settings set to medium. I did go ahead and bump this down to low to give a more accurate representation of performance versus the Steam Deck. Okay, officially moving on to the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme. 15 watt performance mode, 720p resolution, and right off the bat we're getting attacked by a big ass bear, our first boss fight of the game. Performance numbers look good, CPU usage around 25%, GPU usage around 95%, and we're consistently getting between 30 to 35 frames per second. For battery life, I lost 70% in 1 hour, so users can estimate pushing a little over an hour on a full charge.
Oh, you've done it now, bear. Here it comes. Hit him before he stops again. Grab him! He's looking shaky, brother!
Next up is the 25 watt unplugged turbo mode. CPU usage is up a bit, averaging around 40%. GPU usage still averages around 95%. We have seen a nice jump in FPS though, pushing between the mid-40s and mid-50s, but battery life as always is not great, as I only made it 52 minutes on a full charge.
Behind you! Fire right back! It's been like this all night.
Wrapping it up, as always, is the 30 watt plugged in turbo mode, and what better way to showcase this than with another boss fight against the God of Thunder himself. For some reason my performance metrics didn't display immediately, but once they do pop up, we see similar numbers to the previous turbo mode, but a decent increase in our FPS, consistently sitting in the mid to high 50s. Absolutely amazing. Recapping battery life, comparing the different models and modes, users can expect between an hour and a half on the Steam Deck LCD. If you own the OLED model, at these settings you can expect over 2 hours. With the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme playing at the 15 watt performance mode, 720p resolution, you can expect between an hour and a half gameplay. And then bumping it up to the 25 watt turbo mode, don't expect much more than 45 to 50 minutes. Comparing average FPS in the default settings, and we're seeing respectable numbers across the board. The The Steam Deck LCD averaged around 36 frames per second during my testing, while the Steam Deck OLED averaged around 42 frames per second. As for the ROG Ally, while all numbers were good, our best performance, as always, will come by playing at one of the turbo modes, but for any mode, you can see the best performance comes at playing 720p, and in my experience, we lose about 10 to 20% each time we bump up the resolution. Now, I do want to mention that these numbers are just based off of very early gameplay, and I'm not sure what sort of performance numbers one may see later in the game, so just be mindful that numbers will vary zone to zone. So, God of War Ragnarok, will it play? I'm very excited to say yes, and honestly I was a little surprised that it ran as well as it did. In any of my videos before, I think that if we can get at least 30 FPS and we don't drop below that on these devices, then that is a good number and we'll experience. And we saw that across the board. Even on the Steam Decks, we saw baseline 30 and it never dropped below that. Same thing playing on the 15 watt performance mode at 720p. Playing on the turbo modes for the Ally, we saw those numbers jump into the 40s and 50s. And even though we were playing at the low default settings, I thought the game still looked amazing. And I think this is a very enjoyable experience, and I cannot wait to continue to play this game on these devices. I did not play it on the PlayStation, so this is my first time playing through Ragnarok. Very excited based on what I've seen so far, and I can't wait to continue with that. If you're planning on checking out God of War Ragnarok on any of your devices, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel because your support does mean everything. Thanks everybody, and game on.